What if your brain makes your decisions before you even know you've made them? Right now, you feel like you're in control. But neuroscience suggests that your brain may have already decided, and your conscious mind is just catching up. Does free will really exist? It's a question that has puzzled philosophers for centuries. But what does modern neuroscience have to say about it? Are we truly the authors of our own actions, or are we just complex biological machines responding to stimuli? Let's dive into the fascinating and sometimes unsettling world of our brain to find out. For a long time, the idea of free will felt intuitive. I decide to lift my arm, and it lifts. I choose to drink coffee instead of tea. These feel like conscious choices originating from my own volition. This is the classic top-down view of control, where our conscious mind is the CEO of our body, making executive decisions. But a series of groundbreaking experiments in neuroscience started to paint a very different picture. It all began in the 1980s with a researcher named Benjamin Libet. He conducted a simple yet revolutionary experiment. He asked participants to watch a clock and decide whenever they felt the urge to flick their wrist. They had to note the exact time on the clock when they first became aware of their intention to move. While they did this, Libet was measuring their brain activity using an EEG. What he found was staggering. A specific pattern of brain activity, called the readiness potential, started to build up in the brain about half a second before the participants reported feeling the conscious urge to move. Let that sink in. Their brains had already initiated the action before they were even aware of their own decision to act. This suggests that the conscious decision wasn't the cause of the action, but rather an afterthought, a story our brain tells itself after the fact. Libet's experiment sparked a huge debate. Did it mean free will was just an illusion? Critics pointed out flaws. Maybe the readiness potential was just general brain chatter, not a specific preparation for movement. Perhaps reporting the exact moment of a conscious decision is inherently inaccurate. But over the years, more sophisticated studies using modern techniques like fMRI have replicated and expanded on Libet's findings. One famous study let people choose to press one of two buttons, left or right. Researchers could look at their brain activity and predict, with surprising accuracy, which button they would press up to 10 seconds before the person themselves was consciously aware of their choice. 10 seconds! It's as if your brain knows what you're going to do long before you do. This seems to be a huge blow to the traditional idea of free will. If our choices can be predicted from our brain activity before we're conscious of them, where does that leave our sense of agency? So, are we just puppets, and our brain is the puppet master pulling the strings? Well, it's not that simple. The story neuroscience tells is more nuanced. Let's think about what's really happening in the brain. Our brain is a prediction machine. It constantly takes in information from our environment and our past experiences to make unconscious predictions about what to do next. When you're driving, you don't consciously think about every single turn of the wheel or press of the pedal. Your brain handles it automatically, based on years of learned experience. These unconscious processes are incredibly efficient. They free up our conscious mind to focus on more complex, long-term goals. Maybe the decision to flick a wrist or press a button isn't a decision in the way we think of it. It's more like a spontaneous urge bubbling up from a sea of unconscious brain activity. Our conscious awareness just catches on to it as it happens. This leads to a new way of thinking about free will. Maybe free will isn't about initiating an action from a blank slate. Maybe it's about having the power to say no. Libet himself suggested this. He found that even after the readiness potential began, participants could still consciously decide to veto the action. They could stop themselves from flicking their wrist. He called this free won't. This idea of a veto power is actually quite powerful. Our brains might generate all sorts of spontaneous urges and impulses based on our genetics, our past, and our current environment, but our conscious self, our prefrontal cortex, has the ability to step in and inhibit those urges. You might have the unconscious urge to eat that entire cake, but you have the conscious ability to say, no, I'm sticking to my diet. You might have the impulse to say something angry, but you can choose to hold your tongue. This is a more limited but perhaps more realistic version of free will. It's not about being a magical, uncaused cause. It's about conscious control and self-regulation. It's the ability to steer the ship even if you didn't create the ocean currents. Our consciousness acts as a quality control manager, evaluating the suggestions that bubble up from our unconscious mind and deciding which ones to approve and which ones to reject. This makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. A brain that can override immediate impulses in favor of long-term goals is a brain that's more likely to succeed. Planning for the future, cooperating with others, and following social rules all require this kind of conscious self-control. So, while our actions might originate in unconscious processes, our consciousness plays a crucial role in shaping our behavior. But where do these unconscious processes even come from? They aren't random. They are the product of everything that has made you who you are. Your genes, your upbringing, your memories, your experiences, your culture. Every book you've read, every conversation you've had, every mistake you've made, all of it shapes the neural pathways in your brain, influencing the urges and options that bubble up into your consciousness. So, in a way, your past choices, your conscious efforts to learn and grow, are what program your unconscious mind. The deliberate practice you put into learning a musical instrument eventually becomes the effortless, unconscious flow of playing a song. The conscious effort you put into being a more patient person can eventually change your automatic reactions in stressful situations. So we have more influence than we might think. We can't control the exact firing of every neuron in the moments leading up to a decision, but we can influence the system over the long term. We can choose what we expose ourselves to, what we practice, and what values we cultivate. By doing so, we are shaping the unconscious brain that will be making our choices in the future. So, does free will exist? If you define free will as a magical soul separate from the brain, making decisions in a vacuum, then neuroscience says probably not. Our decisions are deeply rooted in the physical processes of our brains. But if you redefine free will as the capacity for conscious self-control, the ability to veto impulses, and the power to shape our own character over time, then yes, we absolutely have a form of it. It's not the absolute free will of philosophy, but it's a practical, meaningful free will that allows us to have agency and responsibility for our lives. We are not just bystanders watching a movie of our life unfold. We are active participants, constantly interacting with our own biology to guide our path. The science doesn't take away our humanity, it just gives us a more accurate user manual for how our minds actually work, and understanding that is the first step to using our minds more effectively. This is a massive topic, and we've only scratched the surface. What are your thoughts on free will? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the mind, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into science and philosophy.